This is Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on any podcasting platform or on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Well, it is now the Inside the Birds off season. Adam Caplan, the Eagles season ends in Tampa, blown out to the Buccaneers as both sides struggle last night to really look like an NFL team. I mean, just a non-competitive effort on both sides of the ball, Adam.
Yeah, Mike, it was interesting because it was 16-9 at halftime, and it just felt like they were getting smoked. And we did our halftime show with our some of our Patreon members, and it was great, and everyone's like, hey, look, this is ridiculous. They're not really playing well. They shouldn't be in the game. You never know what could happen. Well, they'd wind up not scoring in the second half. And it was just an absolute disaster getting outscored 16-0 in the second half. And the thing that just floored me is the lack of credible play design, execution, 0-9 on third down. They actually missed a tush-push for the two-point conversion. Can you believe it? You knew it was not their night. It was just miserable. I mean, I should have. Look, when you look at this thing, and you go back, Mike, to some of the wins where they came back against the Bills and the Chiefs being down at halftime and finding a way to win. I mean, that was impressive, but they showed their flaws. But who would have believed this? This is just a complete meltdown where you know, for the people wanting Sirianni fired, before the Cardinals game, I'm like, no. And then once they got embarrassed at home against the Cardinals, I'm like, all right, now you could discuss it. Now it's fair game. Because I think what happens is if when you feed into the angry people that don't really understand the way it works, you want people to try to understand the game and how things are done. But this has been so bad, Mike, and I mean, I remember the 2012 Andy Reid team. That team you knew was bad. The roster was bad. Now, this roster is clearly not as good as last year's, which we told you in week one. But for them to embarrass themselves 6 out of 7 like they have, and the one win was not exactly great against the Giants in a comedy of errors. So you have to start questioning how this team is coached. Offensive, defensive schemes. We'll get defense in a minute. But you have to really question what the thought process is of putting these schemes together.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch this team, it's elementary. I mean, it's basic stuff. They can't handle the blitz. The passing game just basically one routes. I mean, guys running 9 routes all night long. I mean, it's borderline. I felt bad for them. And, like, you're looking at Hurts and you wonder, what role does he have in this? Is he regressing or is he a byproduct of what is just a bland offense?
Yeah, I thought Tim McManus of ESPN.com wrote a great piece that I think debuted yesterday prior to the game on Hurts and his actual issues with the offense. You mentioned the 9 routes. It's too vertical. I mentioned on our postgame show last night, one thing that really bothers me, the lack of in-breakers. They play a lot of zone defense, the Bucs. They blitz a lot, but they play zone behind it. And it's like they have no blitz beaters. They have no zone beaters. It was embarrassing. This is just the scheme is awful. Offensively, See, I know people bring up it was the same scheme as last year. That doesn't matter, folks. It's irrelevant. It's whatever you're doing this year is not working. What are you going to do to change it? It's Sirianni's lack of adjustments in that. You have to have something else in your toolbox. The guy played offense in college, okay? The guy knows offense. It's his scheme that he brought in, which is a combination, I'm told, of 2 or 3 different schemes that he coached in over his career, and it's just terrible. I mean, this is an epic embarrassment. Let's call it what it was. It starts with the head coach in terms of play design and offense, getting players to execute. He obviously is not teaching well enough. And the quarterback, you mentioned, regressed this season. Everybody knows it. Even the biggest Hurts fans know that he regressed the season. It's not a secret.
Yeah.
He's got a hand in it, and he's got to do a better job. And his accuracy was down this season. I don't know how he combined for 38 touchdowns. I mean, we're including running touchdowns, but he did not have a very good season.
They played Tampa in Tampa, ran 40 times for 200 yards. Last night, 15 for 42. While I'm not saying why didn't you feature the run, Why was the run so successful, Minnesota, Tampa Bay? The run game was completely ineffective essentially the rest of the year, including last night.
Yeah, look, they actually, if you look at the first series, they came out running. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the first quarter, they're down 10-0. Early in the second quarter, first minute, they're down 13-0. And it's fun that some teams will actually continue to run the ball. Once they get down 20 or something, forget it. It's going to be pass happy. You understand that. That's the other thing. Look, I'm not a run the game guy at all. I never have been, really, the last 20 years. But there are times, particularly when your quarterback is struggling, and also with this pass target group, the crazy thing is after Julio Jones got hurt, they only had the three receivers, Devontae Smith, who was absolutely awesome, okay, Watkins and Zacchaeus. Then Britton Covey was the fourth. That's all they had left to finish the game in the second quarter. They should have had a receiver off the practice squad. That was a mistake, knowing that A.J. Brown wouldn't play. We knew it would be a struggle. I picked the Bucs to win the game. I should have actually picked them to win a blowout, but I didn't. But I had them winning and covering the spread because they were playing better than the Eagles were. And the Bucs, by the way, are very average. There's nothing special about them. Just the Eagles completely imploded, and the head coach has got to take a look at himself if he's still the head coach going forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned, by the way, Tampa won 5 of their last 6. Philly lost 5 of their last 6.
Look at their schedule, though, Mike. Look, in Tampa, not very. They didn't play.
I agree.
Decent team.
I agree, and I said at points last night, I said Tampa is so bad that they're keeping the Eagles in this game, who are essentially the worst team in football right now. Tampa just kept dropping passes.
7, I think.
Oh, my gosh. I said, this team is so bad that the Eagles are actually still in the game.
That's it. You just nailed it, Mike. This is what we were talking about in our little Ask ITB thing with our Patreon people. We were like, the game should not be this close.
No.
And a couple guys were like, oh, well, maybe they'll pull it off. I'm like, no, they're not going to. They don't have any energy, Mike.
I'll tell you what, when they threw the pass, Adam, to Smith down the field, they finally connected on one, and I said they're gonna like ass backwards themselves into scoring here and somehow getting into this game and winning. But obviously that was the only play, and then they kick the extra point, they take it off the board, and the one thing they've done right all year, they couldn't even do that anymore.
Yeah, the tush push. Yeah, that they missed that one. But, boy, Devontae Smith was absolutely awesome.
Yes.
Give him credit. He's a baller. He didn't play for Nick Saban. You're going to get, you're going to get his best. The other troubling part, Mike, I don't understand, and Jeff Stallin's such a great coach. I know the Niners were the team that started this, bringing what's called zero blitz with no deep safety. We're going to come after you. And they did. And ever since then, a lot of teams blitzed against them. And you know what, as Troy Aikman says, it's not a secret what Todd Bowles is going to do, but there was seemingly someone always in Hurts' face. Again, I'm not saying he played well. He did not. Don't let the numbers fool you. He put some what we call empty numbers. The bottom line is it was an abomination at offense, and defensively, Mike, non-competitive really for about 6 weeks. They've been so bad defensively. I can't look. I didn't. Matt Patricia. A lot of people think he's a smart guy, and, I get that. It doesn't really matter. It's can you get your guys to execute? Well, the problem that he had was this was dumb. We're going to talk more about this in tomorrow's Inside the Birds, but the dumbest thing he ever did is to try to crowbar a lot of his defensive concepps. The players have no idea what they were doing. Mike, you just talked about it. How many players for the Bucs ran scot-free, wide open?
Yeah.
Kate Otten looked like George Kittle out there, who also crushed the Eagles earlier.
I said, how many games this year did Tampa Bay go in saying, we're going to feature Cade Otton? He had 11 targets in the game last night because they said, go after 41. Find 41 and go after him all game long. And they just went over the middle of the field just like everybody else has. So they got major problems there on defense. Let's look at the defensive side of the ball. As you said, they continued to collapse, embarrassing tackle. It was a gutless effort on the defensive side of the ball. Guys running free, mental errors. So they got big questions that they got to figure out on that defensive side of the ball.
So when you look at what happened last night, Mike, it's like, okay, the Bucs knew what kind of coverages the Eagles have. Since the Eagles did not adjust at all defensively, their looks, like, okay, well, they're running a lot of cover 3. We're going to run Cade Otton down the middle. Kate Otten drops a 30-yarder over the middle. Beautiful throw by Baker Mayfield, had a clear path. But Kate Otten continued to get targeted. Mike Evans had a terrible drop against James Bradbury down the right sideline in the first half. That might have been a touchdown. That was right there. Not sideline. It was actually inside the numbers, but on the right side. The embarrassing attempt to tackle on Trey Palmer's touchdown catch run should have been a 10-yard catch. He tries to tackle a shoulder pad. What is that, Mike? That's what you were talking about. The effort. That is coaching. That is absolutely coaching. And the other thing is, whoever's coaching them next year, they have to make a decision on how much they're going to coach and how much they practice and how they practice. Because you can't do this, Mike. You can't tackle like this and be coached right. There's something going on here. The lack of execution and the effort and the technique. I mean, the missed tackle rate, I can't even count that high, the missed tackle rate last night. So bad.
Yeah, it was real bad. In fact, Clay Harbor had the tweet of the night last night when showing their effort of tackling. He said, this is like the movie that you watch where the tackling looks so unrealistic that you can't buy into the movie because the guys are just literally throwing themselves. You know, this is a missed tackle you see in a movie, and the call is and it's so unrealistic. That was them trying to tackle last night.
What was that? What? I just can't believe. Yeah, see, the people hate Sirianni. You know, like their case has been made here. I mean, people throw stuff against the board and they really don't know sometimes. But if you feel like they've been poorly coached, hey, you have the thumbs up. You've got it. And I don't go after coaches much. I'll criticize when I think it's necessary and true. Only when it's true. This has been bad, Mike.
Yes.
This has been epically bad, and Jeffrey Lurie can't be happy. Go ahead.
No, let's take a look at some of the things that could be next year for Adam Caplan. Jason Kelce, let's start there. A lot of reporting that he has retired. He was obviously emotional. He did not talk, and then Schefter this morning said he told the team, and Kelce, I don't know that he officially wants to say it yet, but he's finished, right?
Yes. So he's probably going to do media. I know he'd been working with a media coach. The last 4 years, every year, I remember people close to him 2 years ago said he absolutely is going to retire. Pretty certain of it. Didn't retire. Kept getting paid. Became the highest paid center. Eagles took care of him, rightfully so. I don't vote for the Hall of Fame. I vote in two polls. One of them's due tomorrow, but it's not the Hall of Fame. If there's ever a center that goes in as a first ballot guy, he's got to be, obviously. Boy, Mike, that's going to be interesting to see what happens because obviously Juergens is his replacement. That means right guard, Mike, going forward is open. And remember, Kelce gets him out of a lot of bad plays. A player told us that. So that's more communication's going to have to be really good with Cam Juergens and Hurts. That's good, Mike. That's a drop off. Like that's a problem for me.
And by the way, Juergens had a rough night at the office last night in the last couple of weeks. So yes, so Kelce, he's retiring, and what that means for their offensive line moving forward. You drafted Tyler Steen, so now maybe he's your right guard. We'll see. They like to draft linemen, so maybe they target that. You mentioned Sirianni. Is in your mind? I talked to McMullen earlier. He said he flew to Tampa with no thought that Sirianni could be in trouble. He's flying home thinking differently. Where are you?
Yeah, I think it's one of these situations, Mike, where, and it's always up to the owner. He makes the call. Knowing Jeffrey a little bit, talking to him over the years, and knowing how things are done there, when you don't meet expectations, okay? I don't know that Jeffrey felt that they were a Super Bowl team, but he expected them to be pretty good. This kind of collapse cannot be good for Sirianni's job status, just knowing the way things go. Because when they meet, whether it's tonight or tomorrow morning, the first question it's got to ask is, and we know that they've been talking. It's not like they don't talk. We know they've had meetings, multiple meetings, we're told. But now that the season's over and you get a clear mind, why couldn't you stop this runaway train of going downhill? And he's got to have an answer for that. And see, this is the thing. What Jeffrey has not done anything like this before, potentially fire a head coach who's only made the playoffs and not made he made the playoffs first 3 years. Mm-hmm. This is almost historic considering firing him here. If he does, he understands, the way this is going to look for anyone potentially looking into taking this job. Now, one personnel source said to me. This is a good point, and this made me think a little bit. If you bring him back, he's on the super hot seat. Like he could be fired in season. Jeffrey's only done that once. We know that was with Chip Kelly prior to Week 17 in 2015. We just know that's not the way Jeffrey does things. So if you're an assistant on a new staff, let's say, if Sirianni's still the head coach, there are going to be changes. We all know that. So if Nick wants to hire a bunch of new coaches, whether he's forced to or not, there are going to be changes. There has to be when you have a meltdown like this. What coach would want to come in here knowing that very well could be one and done? That's job security is really important to coaches, and I had thought of that. Someone I really respect told me that it'll be hard for them. This is really something I have not seen here. And I actually worked for the Eagles from 11 to 13 before I went to ESPN, and I got to know the Eagles coaches, how miserable it was, and they kind of knew they were out. A lot of the people that I knew there then, you kind of knew that was bad because the roster was terrible. This is not a bad roster. Now, again, it's not nearly as good as last year. We all knew that. But to embarrass yourselves against the Giants twice, the Cardinals, you have to be kidding me, in the Link, and get smoked by the Niners, Mike, on your way down to end the season, and the embarrassing loss, the choke against Seattle, get blown out at Dallas. I forgot to talk about that. And this is one after another, and they barely beat the Chiefs and Bills. They had to come from behind. And the Cowboys choked that first game. They should have won it. Dak runs out of bounds for no reason. They barely beat Washington. This is really a half a season of football that's not acceptable. And Jeffrey's very demanding. That's what makes him a great owner. This is not good for Sirianni's job security, but I wish him well. I don't want anyone to get fired, but I just know the way it is in that building, Mike. I know the way it is.
Well, I said this week or last week, Adam, that the only way I could see Sirianni being in trouble is if the team is non-competitive. I don't think I could come up with a script that could be more non-competitive than that team was last night. And for the last 6 weeks of this season, totally non-competitive for 6 weeks. I agree with you. I don't want to say, hey, I want to see a guy fired, but I think what you saw last night, you certainly have to make the decision. Let's look at some of the key decisions they're going to have to make. DeAndre Swift is an unrestricted free agent. I don't know. They didn't even really use him. I mean, do you value that position to bring him back again, or is that a spot where you just draft and pay the guy nothing?
It's funny. I had a joke on our post-game show last night. I'm like, is there an NFL rule, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you're not allowed to throw the running back on first or second down? And on third down, you can't have Swift in. You can only have Gainwell because he's a better pass protector. See, this is the – I mean, if you and I sat down, give me your top 20 issues with the offense. That's in my top 5. The lack of Swift in the pass game, embarrassing. Moshe and I were at I don't know if you were at training camp, Mike, but we were there every day. It was insane how much he was getting the ball. He didn't practice a lot. They kind of put him in bubble wrap. But when he practiced, it seemed like he caught the ball every other play. I don't get it. That's bad. That can't happen. Look, they're going to if he comes back, it'll be on a low end deal. They're not going to pay him very much. They talked low money, I'm told, with Sanders, and they never. I don't even think they officially made him an offer. They had some interest in bringing him back on a low end. They knew he was going to get paid, so it never went anywhere. I can't imagine anything different than Swift. Did a good job, by the way, over 1,000 yards. Made a Pro Bowler. We could debate what Pro Bowl really means anything in terms of how good a player is, but he had a good season. That trade worked out in terms of running the football, but he didn't do what they brought him here to do, is catch it and run it.
Yeah. On defense, you've got let's go with the two guys, Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. Graham has said he would like to come back if they want to have him, and Fletcher's an unrestricted free agent. Are either one of those guys back?
Yeah, I think Brandon is actually signed for low money this coming season. For cap purposes, I know he had a 2-year deal. That, to me, is like a down-the-road decision. It's not going to make or break them. He's just, for a leadership guy, because this locker room also, it's another thing. We'll talk more about it on Friday. The leadership of that locker room needs to be better. And Fletcher had a good year. And Fletch, I'm told, has been a pretty good leader for them in recent years. I know the staff really thinks he's a leader. Very more vocal than he has been in recent years, Mike. So I'm sure they'd take him back, but the money is, they have a lot of decisions to make. They could extend Landon Dickerson and Devontae Smith's contracts, being the way that they do things here, probably they'll look to do that. They've got some cap challenges. There's a lot, Mike, to unpack with these contracts.
Yeah, well, James Bradbury would be one of the cap problems. You got 2 years left on the deal. Avonte Maddox has time left on the deal. I know Slay's got time left on the deal. Byard has time left on the deal. So you're basically your secondary. You got to either bring them back or figure out how to wiggle your way out of those deals.
Well, Bradbury's due just under $11 million, fully guaranteed. So obviously he can't come back as a starter. There's just no way that could happen. Could they? I mean, they owe him the money, so I mean they could always say, "Listen, we'll bring you back, but you're not going to have the same role." And I don't know how happy he would be, but the problem is, Mike, they don't have a starter to replace him. The quality of depth on this team it's way worse than I expected. It's something that kind of floored me. This is what they've learned about this team. Their depth is not as good as they probably thought it was. Whereas awesome last year, for the most part, Mike, not as good, and that's part of why they're in this way.
All right, Zach Cunningham and the linebacking crew there. Are we going to look at two new guys again, or I guess Dean, they're hoping is back. I don't know if you can count on him, but Zach Cunningham.
He'll be back. He's on a contract.
Right,
yeah,
right. I'm saying, do they just hand him that job again, or do they have to bring in some sort of competition for him, even if they like him? Obviously not durable enough.
Yeah, Morrow's a free agent. They'll see on Dean. He'll come to OTA, or when he gets cleared, come back from the bad foot injury. Zach Cunningham, to me, you could bring him back. I mean, I would. Mike, I must run. I got to take this call, but I'll see you Friday.
All right, there's Adam Caplan, Football at 4.